In this video, we're going to talk about lighting in Blender. So I'm going to show you how you can use the basic lights here, and also how you can use different types of real-time render and different types of viewport settings to enhance some of the objects that we created in a previous video. So I'm gonna take one step back to see some effects that we can get in the viewport using the models that we produced so far. So architectonic models and interior design, organic shapes like animals or characters. So right now I'm using a type of visualization which is pretty similar to ZBrush, which is I think the most popular tool out there to do sculpting. So if you search for ZBrush, you can see it uses this kind of a clay material, a little bit specular and kind of a red or brownish color. And also you can see in Matbox, which is similar to ZBrush, that it uses this kind of brownish clay color. So these are used to enhance the modeling and detailing and sculpting part, and you can do that also here in Blender. So I'm gonna start from the standard visualization. And by the way, subscribe to the channels because in the future we're gonna make ZBrush and Matbox tutorials as well. So right here we are watching everything with a standard color, which is this gray color. And so let's go back from the beginning here. So if you use wireframe, you can see the structure of your models, and if you deactivate the ghost view here or X-ray, you can see this type of view is called hidden lines. So you cannot see the other lines that are behind. So you can switch from this one to this one. So next one is going to be, well, the one dedicated more to the modeling part and the sculpting part. And we just finished all the part about modeling and sculpting, and we're gonna start to talk about lighting, lights, and materials, textures. So we're gonna use other forms of views, like the most advanced here, the next two. But with this one here, just to finish the modeling part, we can still get some extra features which are gonna be really interesting. So if I click here, again, we can go to X-ray, but if I click on this little arrow, I can change the type of standard lighting. So I can go from a studio to matcap to flat. Now, if you use a flat lighting, this could be really helpful when you work with textures or images. You can see here that the reference image that we used in the previous video, it looks really nice, and everything else is like hidden. So we don't see structures, we don't see shapes, we don't see any 3D effect. So if we switch back to matcap, this is going to be the standard. And if you click on this material, you can apply other materials. So these are like standard materials, and they are also reflective. So you can test the specularity and the light, and the object's gonna start to look more realistic. So you can use these materials that are already set up for you. So this one here is similar to ZBrush and Matbox. So if you need to sculpt, I think this one it's an excellent choice. And you can also do random here, so you can have a little bit of variation on each single object. So it's kind of giving you a little bit of, well, it's less boring, and it's gonna give you more information about details of your mesh so that you can understand it better. You can also change the background if you want something less boring, so you can use the theme, the world background, which we don't have right now, and then viewport. We're gonna talk about also the world background and other stuff later. So just gonna change here the background color so I can have like whatever color I like. Now backface culling also is pretty important. You can see happening right there in the object. You can see there it basically changes the way that some objects look. So I'm gonna duplicate this cube and I'm gonna place it right here to show you what backface culling means. So all I need to do here is erase or delete some of these faces. So I'm gonna use these faces and delete faces. Okay, so you can see I can see the insides of this object here, but well, the polygon only has one front view, one front side and one back side. So the backface culling is going to help us to see if we have the correct position of that face. Now you can also go here and activate the normals so that you can actually see the direction of the face. Now when the direction goes the other way, well, that's going to be a problem for some renders, not every render engine, but usually, for example, when you create video games or things like that, you need to make sure that the polygons are always in the front view and never on the back side. So otherwise they could look transparent, but they're actually not. So if I go in the other side, they don't look transparent, only in the back side. So this could be an issue when you get to materials and lighting and render. So be careful about that. Now, for example, if I select these faces here and I go to the mesh menu up, I can see there is a menu dedicated to normals. You can recall this with the Alt N. So for example, I can flip this and this now becomes oriented the other way so that I cannot see them. So to make sure that everything is correct, what you can do is basically select everything with A. So you select all the faces, go here to meshes, normals, and then do recalculate outside or recalculate inside, whatever. But make sure that all the faces of your object are oriented correctly and that you don't have holes. Now, if you like this box shape, remember that you can also apply a solidify modifier, which we already saw previously, so that this is not going to be a single surface or single poly surface, but it's actually going to be a solid, so it has two sides, and this is fine. So I'm gonna delete this and proceed. Let's go back up here to the viewport shading options and let's go down. So you have again X-ray, but here you can actually change the transparency value, and you also can use shadows. Now shadows are already gonna give you a little bit of three-dimensionality and a more realistic look to your scene. Now always use shadows when you use lights, and also if you use the standard lighting, it's recommended that you increase a little bit the shadows. Now you can also go here and install other studio lights and matte caps if you go into this Riddle render engine. And also cavity is really important. You can see how everything now looks more detailed and it's enhancing all the particular parts and the specific parts of your model. So I think this is one excellent option when you need to sculpt and model again. But also if we go here in the interiors, you can see that everything looks definitely better. So this is something I certainly would do if I need to take, let's say, a snapshot, a quick snapshot of my scene. I would do that because this is looking better and it's kind of filleting and chamfering the edges as we explained before. So it basically adds a little bit of shadows, like ambient occlusion shadows inside the parts that are less reachable by the light. You can change here from world to screen, or you can make both. And here down, you can change the intensity of the parts that are like in relief, so they are less occluded, and also you can increase the occlusion part. So if you don't know what it is, just Google ambient occlusion, you will find a lot of examples. So you can see the details now are really bumping up. They're really more interesting than before. Now we also have outline. If you want to create a outline of your objects, no, this is not wireframe. This is just the outline. Now to see that, we can actually go here in the viewport again, and let's deactivate the shadows. So everything is gonna look flat. So also I'm gonna deactivate all the other effects, and perhaps I need to choose another simpler material here like this one, and let's set this to random again so we have different colors. Now if you go here to studio, you can actually change the lighting, the standard lighting, so you have like flat, or you have one side, two sides lighting. So these are kind of presets that you can use, but this is not actually working with lights yet. We are just working with standard features. Again, matte cap to work with the material, and then you can go to flat, and this is gonna look like graphic design, like vector graphics, things like that. So if you see here, this looks pretty fancy. If you want to use it again with a snapshot, you want to create a nice flat effect, like cartoonish effect. Okay, now let's go back to Matcap. There you go. And so these are different effects that you can apply to your views. Now, if we go to the next one, well, this is not a full render preview yet. And if you see here, we still cannot use our lights, but it's still using some generic lighting. But what we can do is just to display our materials and textures. So you can see here textures from the image planes, but this is also a really simple material, which is kind of a color material, and that's it. So to do that, we can select the object, go straight to the material tab and create a new, and just assign a color. So this is a really simple operation if you just want to assign some color. Then again, we're going to talk about those later. And we can also assign emissive materials, which are pretty nice. So if I click here and go all the way down, you can see materials are composed by many channels. And you have this one here, it's called emission. So if you bump it up, this is going to create a light out of a mesh. So any mesh could become a light, and this is really, really cool. But we cannot see it right now. So to see this effect, we need to switch from the next one. So the next one is actually going to be the rendered view. So this is the closest preview that you can get of your final render. And you can see now that this is actually an emissive object. So if I move it closer here, and this is all happening real time. So, well, it could get really slow. So, and right now, specifically, I'm